evening, everyone. Welcome to the book club. One more session. And guess what? This is the 99th session since the lockdown happened. Isn't that marvelous? Thank you, Latika. I think, we all feel that way. How amazing. I mean, when we started, and once more, let me thank Chetan Shetty for suggesting that we go on Zoom if we can't meet physically. And he taught us, I did a lot of hand holding. He taught us how to use Zoom, and we were off on a great start. And now we no longer met only twice a month. We began to meet every Sunday. I wondered how long we would be able to sustain this, but we have sustained it. Wow, 99th session. What do you know? So thank you, all of you who have made this possible. Now, today we have another book by Manu Pillai. If you remember, we had done The Ivory Throne some months ago. And today it is False Allies. And we have Anindya Mukerji to present it to you. And he will allow questions and a discussion afterwards. Anindya, welcome to the book club. This is your first airing here. We look forward to your presentation. And as a matter of fact, I don't know very much about you. So would you please...
But let me tell you about one thing. Mohini, can I interrupt?
Yes.
Anindya, alumni, the same college as mine. He was far junior to me, but I am Calcutta, he is from. And just to tell everyone that he's from I am Calcutta and he's interested in our book club very, very much. Go ahead now, Anindya.
And he's interested in history. So that's why he's chosen this book. So Anindya, over to you. The mic is all yours.
Thank you, Mohini. Good evening to most of you. Rakesh, maybe it's late morning, and Paramita, good morning to you. For me, Manu Pillai has been an incredible presence. His books have meant a lot to me, and it's a joy to be doing this session today. I'm going to try and share the slide deck that I've prepared. So here goes. The book we're talking about is False Allies, and the way I am going to look at it is in the following ways. A, the false allies. Then second, the allies. The third is the Maharajas, and fourth is Ravi Verma. Over the last about 6 years, Manu has written 4 books. This False Allies is the 4th in that series. And maybe if he writes a 5th one, it'll be the cover will be again in black and white. And the 6th one would be in aqua green. So what strikes me about Manu Pillai is I'm reminded of a story. So I live in a part of Pune where the moment I exit the gate, on the left-hand side is a slum. And there are boys from these slums who do odd jobs. And one of them is by the name of Amol Dine. He used to wash cars. He used to deliver milk, newspapers, etc. Had an alcoholic father who died pretty early in his life. And Amol dropped out of school when he was in class 8. So why do I mention Amol? He used to hate each and every subject except for history. And it so happened that when he was in class 6, his history teacher, apparently the one who was teaching, apparently had taken seriously ill. And the person who used to teach physical exercises, what was called PT, was given the charge of history. And Amal says, the way this person used to conduct the classes, he says it was riveting. He would tell stories, and the gentleman used to make history come alive. Why do I mention Amol and this incident is Manu is not a trained historian, pardon the air quotes out there. He took to history because of a passion. He tells stories. And the stories that come through, whether in Rebel Sultans or whether in False Allies or even the courtesan, the Mahatma and the Italian Brahmin, fascinating ones, especially because more so because they talk about a part of India which is rarely written about, namely south of the Narmada, And secondly, a period of of Indian history, which again is not really talked about. So in Rebel Sultans, he talks about the Bahmanis, he talks about the Vijayanagar kingdom, of course, but he talks about all three epochs of the Vijayanagar kingdom. So Manu Pillai, I hope, writes many more books. He's young. In this book, he turns his focus to a certain part of India and a certain time in its in the history of that part of India. So if you look to the right, the parts that are marked in yellow are the ones that were controlled or ruled over by the crown, the British crown. For the greater part, it was Queen Victoria's reign. The parts that you see in pink are what is called Indian ruled India. In other words, these were the princely states. The 565 princely states, as is often talked of, they accounted for 40% of land mass and 23% of the population of India. The question is, if it's 40% of the land mass, why is it 23% of the population? One of the largest states, in fact, the second largest state was Jammu and Kashmir, which where the population density is probably 1/3 that of a Hyderabad state. In other words, that of the Nizam. So we're talking about the pink parts. Manu turns his attention to the pink parts, and within those pink parts, he talks specifically of 5 princely states that were visited by Raja Ravi Varma, where Raja Ravi Varma did portraits, and not just portraits, of course. Now, 2 or 3 remarkable things out here. The question is, why is the yellow yellow and why is the pink pink? So here's the thing. During the uprising of 1857, during that first war of independence, Rajasthan, Punjab, and the greater part of the South threw its weight behind the East India Company. And the consequence of that was a lot of them were allowed to rule over their states. It was indirect rule of the English, but there was still a Raja or a Maharaja in place who would be responsible for 3 things. 1, taxation, number 2, legislation, and number 3, judicial matters. So what is the period we are talking about? And I would ask you to turn your attention to the left side of the screen. These are coins issued by the state of Gwalior. The top row has coins that were issued between 1790 to 1830, roughly. And that's when the East India Company was the English presence in India. In the second row, the 2 coins you see are from 1860s to 1880, roughly. And the third row that you see are coins from after 1900s. So the coat of arms between the first and the second rows, those are of the East India Company, and the crown, the coat of arms between the second and the third rows, that's of the British Crown. So which are these 5 kingdoms that, or princely states that Manu covers in this book, False Allies? Starting from the top, and I'll go clockwise, it's the state of Udaipur and Mewar, ruled over for the greater part by Maharana Fateh Singh. You get an idea of the size of the state when you look at the area. That's about 13,000 square miles. You want to get it in kilometers, I think you need to multiply it by roughly 2.6. Then proceeding downwards, clockwise, that's Krishna Raja Odayar of Mysore, 30,000 square miles, arguably amongst the richest states, probably a notch behind that of the state of Hyderabad. The third one on the right, that's Tondaiman, Raja Tondaiman of the kingdom of Pudukkottai, the tiniest of the 5 out here. Proceeding to the bottom left, that's Uttran Thirumal of the state of Travancore. And finally, on the left, at about 9 o'clock, is Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. So, I have put a small map out there to show you where is Pudukkottai. It's northeast of Madurai. The other four are pretty well-known locations: Udaipur, Mysuru, Travancore, and Baroda. Now, what I want to talk about here specifically is one thing that we would find useful to appreciate when we try to understand the times. 1857 was traumatic. The manner in which the Indians were treated, it set new standards in brutality. The extent to which the East India Company was willing to go, ignoring all known boundaries of earlier, is unbelievable. And that's not my point. The point is that from a certain period of time, and that's roughly 1895, 1900 onwards, India started getting meshed with the world far more at every level. And this cry that you see here, listen, O Rana of Mewar, your subjects are crying for your attention, pay heed to their cries. The riots of Bijolia are tired of writing about their woes. There is little time to waste. Remember, there is no trace left today of the Russian Tsar. Listen, Fatehmal. This is the Bhil uprising of 1900 and of the 1910s. These are Bhils who are tribals. You're talking of Udaipur, Mewar. They are writing to, they are singing this song is a cry to Maharana Fateh Singh of Mewar. And they refer to the Russian Tsar, which is the downfall of the Russian Tsar. And I want to bring out a few things out here, which is for us to try and feel the era that we are talking about. Here is a time in human history where everyone believes the white skins are superior. They can't be defeated. However, a few things start happening. Starting with Ethiopia, that's the image of Menelik II, and that's an illustration of the Battle of Adwa. Here is the first time brown skins or black skins defeated the white skins. That's the Italians. Moving to the top right, the famous defeat of the Russians at the hands of the Japanese. And we're talking here of something that rippled through the world, but especially in Asia, that Asians can defeat Europeans. 1905, of course, led to the fall of the Tsar and the revolution. And thereafter, two things happened that are of note. The fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and especially with the end of the First World War. And I'm going to talk about the consequences in going forward and going back to the Bhils, of course. And 1916, the Easter Uprising. So why am I talking about it is because the Easter Uprising was this, that the British crown could be challenged. Every little bit here has to be understood in the context of the extent to which the soul of India was destroyed from 1857 onwards, deliberately, repeatedly. And therefore, in 1911, on 29 July, when Mohan Bagan won the, there's a fair bit of noise coming in.
1 minute, I will get it out. 1 minute. You can continue.
So in 1911, when Mohan Bagan became the first Indian football club to defeat a club of the whites, you had lakhs of people coming in from Eastern UP, Assam, today's Bangladesh, etc., to Calcutta, They were nowhere near the stadium, but they just wanted to be in the same city where a set of Browns were challenging a set of 11 Whites, the East Yorkshire Regiment. And when Mohun Bagan won, it rippled through the country. Even a newspaper which was so rabidly, so clearly in support of the English, such as the Times of India, even they found it difficult to ignore it. So we're talking of a time where I want, before we move into the false allies bit, we're talking of a period where it was, when we enter the period, it is this: the Whites can't be defeated. They are invincible. And then Menelik goes and destroys it. Then the Japanese show that the Europeans can be defeated. Then people power starts becoming important, which and that is a big consequence of the First World War, and that the British crown can be attacked. And even on simple things, small victories by Browns over the Whites become a huge thing. The red semicircle, or that kind of thing I've drawn in, is a huge factor in whatever happens in India. And that's the great game. The consequences of which, let me give you one of them. I'm going to go back to that part here. Look at the pinks. The pinks were meant as a buffer between Russia and the British Crown, the areas controlled by the British Crown. So people like Colonel Todd, who wrote glowingly, who wrote about Rajput history, well, he based his research, it has been shown that he based his research on sitting with traveling minstrels, with bards. And therefore, it was in the genre of fake news to start talking less about the Rashtrakutas and the Chalukyas or the Satavahanas or the Mauryas, and more about the fact that the areas in the west of India comprised very martial, very warrior-like races. How crazily ahead of the times were the people, were loads of people in this era. Incidentally, 1893 is when Swami Vivekananda was at Chicago, delivering the speech that a lot of Indians talk of warmly and proudly. Here are two of them. 1882, here's a gentleman who's saying that we cannot continue in our slumber. We have to industrialize. And there's another gentleman here in 1893 who's making statements which are, well, even today, they would hold true, they would be relevant, they would be salient. And this is 1882, 25 years post the attempt by Indians to throw out the English in 1857. The two gentlemen are from completely different strata of society, and we'll come to them in going forward. So let me talk about false allies. Let us keep in mind that when in 1947, all the states had to agree to accede to the Indian Union. Out of the 5 states that Manu covers in this book, 2 of them declined to join the Indian Union. And they were Travancore and Pudukkottai. These 2 wanted to be independent entities, independent states. The question is, where are the false allies? And I would like to present one of them. Here is the. Let me ask you, anyone, the gentleman, okay, person here whose photograph you see. Anyone would like to unmute and identify him, please? I'd love it if...
Lord Curzon.
Sorry?
Lord Curzon.
Wonderful, wonderful. The Lord Curzon of that, the great achievement being the division of Bengal. And here is the first false ally saying, wishing him, of course, a safe voyage, a safe travel, and of course, signing off with the second line. Who's this? Well, the one and only Sayaji Rao Gaikwad. Here are some few things I want to point out. The one on the bottom left is soon after his coronation. The one on the right is bottom is with his aunt and his cousin sister whom he lost. The map of Baroda shows you the fact that Baroda as a kingdom, the territories were spread all over. They were not contiguous. They were not one continuum. And there's Saji Rao painted by Raja Ravi Verma in the center, and an image of the great Saji Rao himself. Now, why talk about him as a false ally? Here are some of the people he associated with strongly. And quick question, I would love it if someone were to talk about, identify the four featured here. Would you please unmute yourself and...
Bal Gangadhar Tilak.
Sorry?
I can see Bal Gangadhar Tilak.
Okay.
Raja Ram
The
Mohan
rest I
Roy.
can't.
Sorry, someone else was speaking?
Raja Ram Mohan Roy in the left corner.
Acha, all right.
Or Jyotiba Phule maybe. I don't know.
Okay. That is Jyotiba Phule on the top left. And the other three?
Is the top right Savarkar?
All right.
Not sure.
All right. So,
Bal Tilak.
okay, Tilak. So let me try and help you with another one and see if you can identify them now.
Aurobindo on the right bottom.
Ambedkar.
Baba Saheb.
Ambedkar on top. I don't know.
So we have Jyotiba Phule, we have Ambedkar, Dr. Ambedkar, we have Aurobindo, and the fourth one.
I said Bal Gangadhar Tilak.
Bal Gangadhar Tilak.
Well, Justice Ranade.
Okay.
And Saji Rao was strongly associated with all of them. Of course, the question is, how does Saji Rao impact our lives even today in a positive manner? And some of these would give us answers. Here is a statement which tells you to what extent there was a pushback against the British, saying we must not hold out supplicating hands to the English Parliament. We are not an infant pleading its nurse for a toy, but we have to come to terms with the bald facts, which is that every nation has to beat out its own path to salvation with pain and difficulty. This soon hereafter happens, the split in the Congress between the moderates and the extremists. Tilak being obviously, I don't need to announce which side Tilak was on. One person I would have loved to have seen mentioned in this book, an incredible human being, and I would urge each one of us to look her up. She's the second wife. The first wife passed away at a very young age. Saji Rao was heartbroken. This is Chinnabai, and she was the first All India Women's Conference was held in 1927. She was the president, and she worked. She had a tremendous reading habit. Saji Rao used to often pinch her books, and she used to have her tutor. So her tutor's name was Tottenham, easy to remember, Miss Tottenham. That's from the, my way of remembering it is the football club, Tottenham Hotspurs. So at night when Saji Rao would finish with his reading and go off to bed, Chimnabai used to send Miss Tottenham across to get the book back and replace it before the sun rose, before day broke. I love the picture of her in the one in the center. Kind of brings out to me the kind of persona she was. I would posit that other than for Chimnabai, there are a host of other women we would find worthwhile reading up about this period. Maybe Kamla Devi is one of them, but she comes from a princely state. She is not someone who's to be cowed down by the system. She does not follow the dictates. She is not in parda. Here is a person who is far ahead of her times. And to my mind, a lot of the stuff that Saji, my surmise, A lot of the stuff that Saji Rao did, of course, came from within. But I think I would like to believe that Chimnabai was a huge reason too, a tremendous positive influence. So let's look at this gentleman. What is he doing? Look at the kind of areas that he worked on. Setting up the Bank of Baroda, the manner in which he expanded the Baroda State Railways. If you go on the net to check about shares issued by companies early, okay. So maybe that was R.D. Burman, but that didn't get to finish Piyatu Ab To Aaja. But let's look at what he did when it comes to commerce and industry. Let's look at what he does when it comes to academics. Baroda made primary education not only free, but compulsory. The spend per capita in Baroda on education was 1100% of America at that point in time. 11 times. And why I talk about this is once you look up Sayaji Rao and you understand what an incredible person he was, how far ahead, that's one part. But the institutions he built have lasted till today, whether it is the proliferation, the quality of Bharatnatyam that is practiced between Ahmedabad and Baroda, the kind of stuff that he did to even when it comes to even ruling, constitutional monarchy, giving village councils the right to select, to make laws, and that too not by appointment, by royal decree, but by election. And the top right, well, there was Chimnabai doing probably as much, if not more, than what Saji Rao was already working on. If you just step back from this slide and look at the number of areas, look at how long-lasting has been the impact, look at how informed this person is, well, it's breathtaking for me. And here is one of the persons he worked with, he was associated with for considerable period of time, intensely. That's Justice Ranade. People like Sarvajanik Kaka, who was there there were 3 darbars that were held during this period. And the first one was on the 1st of January. And here is Sarvajanik Kaka saying, hey, it's fine, what you're doing is great, but you need to give us Indians the same status as you give people living in Yorkshire or in Kent or Sussex. A little bit of a small piece of trivium out here about Justice Ranade and the kind of mutual interactions between he and Sayaji Rao led to. The Huzur Paga School, which is one of the, I hope everyone in the country gets to know about it. Maharshi Karve's wife, in her second marriage, she was married to Maharshi Karve. She was amongst the students. And in recent times, maybe a lot of us have enjoyed Chashme Baddur. Sai Paranzape is a student of Huzur Paga. Not, of course, to forget Rima Lagu, who passed away about 5 years ago. So Pune Sarvajanik Sabha played a tremendous role during this period in quietly building up a body of opinion and a set of followers who were saying off with the British yoke. However, there are a couple of things that I want to mention in addition to all these associations of Sayaji Rao and his contributions. Here's the 1911 Darbar in Delhi. I mean, you can figure out from the photographs how the grandeur of the ceremony. And here's the gentleman, he turns up, every Maharaja is told to wear their finest jewels. It's like a parade in feathers. And here he is in the image on your right. He barely curtsies to the king and the queens. He appears in clothes which are distinctly less than regal. And this is not taken, the British are not very happy about this. Having said that, that's Sayaji Rao. He doesn't care about the occasion. I love the way he's striding past the king and his queen at the Darbar, and I wanted to put this up. Sayaji Rao has been talked about by a host of people. This is the Aga Khan, the third. And they were in Pune. Yes, a lot of very serious conversations have happened in Pune that have had national consequence. So today, for example, if there are conversations happening in Pune, watch out for books on them about 150 years from now, or maybe 100 years. They were both, Sayaji Rao as well as the Aga Khan were in Pune, and they were chatting late into the evening. And here is what Sayaji Rao said, and Aga Khan writes it up in his memoirs. Look at those statements. Sayaji Rao says, British rule in India will never be ended merely by the struggle of the Indian people. But world conditions are bound to change so fundamentally that nothing will prevent the disappearance of British rule. Having said that, he goes on, he doesn't stop there. He recognizes how events in the world are going to be impacting India, and he reads this. Incidentally, Sayaji Rao used to travel out frequently. The first time he wanted to do it, he was told that he should not cross the Kalapani. When he came back, he was cleansed by rituals by a host of Brahmins. He discovered that the rituals that were being used were Puranic rituals, not Vedic rituals. Vedic rituals are used by Brahmins for Kshatriyas. Sayaji Rao was not born a Kshatriya, as though that mattered. And he made sure that thereafter those Brahmin priests were thrown out and that Vedic rituals were performed. Nevertheless, going back to the key point, he was a prolific reader. He was a workaholic. He used to travel frequently. And he recognized the fact that events in the world are going to have an impact on India. But go beyond this. He talks about rubbishy states. He says the Indian nation will never be a reality unless this princely order is dismissed. And why I say this is not a time in India's history where people use the phrase Indian nation. Sayaji Rao does it continuously and almost in isolation. So I had put up a little bit this thing that Sayaji Rao had said in 1893 earlier, and I would love it if people were to look up Sayaji Rao some more. A person who was picked up from a small village. He had been a shepherd at that time. He was picked up because Malhar Rao, who was the previous ruler, had been dismissed at short notice. There was no successor. And here is a shepherd from near Nasik. And what a legend. The first false ally and probably the only false ally out of the 5. We have allies, of course, and that's the Odear dynasty. There is a reality and there is a manufactured reality about the Odears. Apparently their family tree could be traced back to the 7th, 8th century during the time of the Guptas, and they had migrated from the north. However, they manufactured a certain history for themselves, and they claim to be descendants of the Chandravanshi and that kind of stuff. Were they a false ally? I don't know whether I have found anything so far, whether in the book or through the book, which makes me assert that they were false. They were a false ally, more an ally. Now, here are the 3 key players. On the top left This is from 1799, and the significance is Tipu Sultan loses in the third war against the English. And the Odayars were a kind of chieftains, and then they became, they were given a kind of a jagir under the Vijayanagar Empire. And so they grew from chieftains to becoming tax collectors of a large enough territory. So when Tipu Sultan was killed, the English fabricated a wonderful story saying this is a gift, an imperial gift to the Hindus of India, which is the kingdom of Mysore. And though Krishnaraja Odayar III on the top left was appointed king, he was hardly the ruler of the state of Mysore for any meaningful period of time. The real rulers were the English. So the capital was in Mysore. The state was ruled out of Bangalore. One of the gentlemen who made a huge contribution during this time is Mark Cubbon. This Cubbon Park as a destination in Bangalore even today it's a wonderful patch of green. So though he was the monarch or the king, really didn't have true powers. The gentleman in the center, Chamarajendra Odayar, ruled for a very short time, incredibly ahead of his times in multiple ways. And the one on the right ruled for a very long time, wonderful ruler again. And Mysore shone when the rest of the country was, the princely states were borrowing money. Remember, this is not borrowing money to wage wars. This is borrowing money simply because of the profligate ways. In 1870, before the famine struck southern India, the state of Mysore had, if you were to draw a balance sheet, they had reserves and surplus of 2 crore rupees at that time. So what did the state of Mysore become truly? In a way, the phrase that has been used, that Mysore was a museumized landscape, is probably tells you what was this, how things were. The English were ruling from Bangalore. Here are the Odayars, and there is a lot of pomp. There is the Dashera. There are palaces being constructed, and they are inventing history for themselves. And while doing so, this mural is from the Ragmahal Palace. It's an incredible mural. When you stand in front of it, if you walk down those colonnaded aisles, etc., and come into this part, it's stunning. Having said that, Krishnaraja Odayar, who commissioned this, actually puts himself in the company of Akbar, even Jahangir and Aurangzeb, goes back to the Puranas, and even as recent as Ranjit Singh. And why I say this is because everyone in the country seems to have bought into the story of the Rajputs as being a much superior race, warrior-like, etc. So whether it's the Marathas, whether it's Odayars of Mysore, everybody wants to say, hey, I want to trace my lineage back to the Marathas. Quick few words about the impact of these 3 rulers. This is the one on the right, the elderly gentleman now is the same Krishnaraja Odayar the 4th, but that was just after he got married, and he got married to a princess from Kathiawar. Here he is at a much later stage in life. Look at the contributions they have made from top to bottom. Well, if you start from the bottom, that's the Krishnaraja Sagara Dam, a massive one, stunning even today. The Soin Lumiere is a delight. The one in the center, well, amongst the first integrated iron and steel works in the country, Jamshedpur, Burnpur, and here in the state of Mysore. The one in the top, well, that's Mysore University. And I would like to say that if you are ever flying over that part of the country, please do take a window seat. Look at the number of tanks that are still in existence today. given the fact that it's not on the windward side, this is on the Deccan Plateau and it's on the leeward side, the significance of those tanks, there were tens of thousands of tanks that were constructed during the reign of these two gentlemen, Chamarajendra Odayar and Krishna Raja Odayar IV. I want to mention one small thing, and this is going to come back later. The image that you see on the left, that's the Nagara Revolution. These were peasants who rose in revolt. And the one on the right is called the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, or Jallianwala Bagh of the South. That's a Vidura Ashwata memorial that we are looking at. So having looked at two parts, false allies and then allies, let's look at another huge part, which is India in the age of Ravi Verma, and that's Devan C.V. Rangacharalu. He's the gentleman I quoted, the one who said in 1882 that 25 years post the brutal putting down, the murder, the mass slaughter of Indians, that here is a person who's sitting with more than 2 crores of reserves and surplus. And what is he talking of? He's saying, hey, we got to build schools. We got to build roads. We got to build railway lines. We have to do all these things. But he doesn't stop there. He goes far beyond that. And I have a little quiz later, and I'm not going to give that away now. But the level to which he thinks and acts on industrialization is what Vishvesvaraya is able to build on 30 years later. This is a gallery of amazing gentlemen and characters. Someone, please recognize this person and tell me, please unmute yourself and
sorry, I don't remember who he is.
we're talking of
Else? Anyone else?
So let me
Go
see
ahead.
if you can recognize the person now.
Nauroji.
Now, what Shashi Tharoor writes about today, Dadabhai Nauroji was writing about 140 years ago, about the amount of capital that was being sucked out of the country by the English. And let's understand this, that if you look at paintings or illustrations of London in the 1810s, 1820s, well, I wonder whether they don't look like they're it's a clean city and stuff like that. But if you look at London in the 1890s or 1900s and 1910s, it's a very different London. And why I talk about this is from the time the Battle of Plassey was won till 1810, it was the East India Company that was ruling, and the money that was being pilfered, well, the farmers were being made to grow opium, and they were being made to grow indigo. And the opium was used to earn a lot of money out of China. In Pune, we have Sassoon, who owned, after whom a hospital is named, and he was the owner of one of the largest chains of opium houses in China. But why do I talk about this is for those 50, 70 years, it was private pockets which were being lined. From 1858 onwards, it was the British Crown that was arrogating the capital that was being sucked out of India. And Dadabhai Nauroji was amongst the first, if not the first, to protest, to write about it, and to create institutions to push back against it. So this is a set of people. The only person I've left out here is Mirza Ismail. But then Mirza Ismail was Diwan of Mysore for a while. And having said that, to talk about the contribution of Mirza Ismail would be worthwhile if we were to also talk of the contribution of Sonam Kapoor in Bhag Milkha Bhag. But here are 5 people who were Diwans of their states. The one in the center, Purnia, bottom center, was instrumental in Mysore becoming what it did 50 years later in the 1910s. He's the one who created the cadre the tax collection mechanisms, and put in place a host of things, the resultant of which was an enormous surplus, which helped them not only tide over the famines, but also to fund many things that were done later. So we have from left, it's Dinkar Rao, Madhava Rao, Purnaya, there's Dadabhai Nauroji, of course, and Seshaya Shastri. Probably each one of them merits a 1 hour session. Doing a 1 hour session in which only the 5 of them, along with Rangacharlu, is talked about, would not be doing justice, would not even begin to help us understand how much they contributed to the creation of this entity called India. Let's look at Maharajas, and I want to talk about this dynasty, which probably was amongst the oldest. A lot of the Indian 565 princely states were in existence from the 5th, 6th century. But here is a dynasty which was marked by one simple thing. After Nadir Shah had ravaged Delhi and no successor could be seen on the horizon, the thought was to bring the Maharana of Mewar to Delhi and crown him the king. So these were the Sisodia Rajputs in existence for more than 600 years. Sangram Singh, better known as Rana Sanga, was probably amongst the first well-known rulers. Rana Pratap, of course, is stuff of folklore. Fateh Singh was there for a long period of time. Having said that, he was neither an ally, but he wasn't a false ally. Why do we need to talk about it? I'll probably talk about one residual effect even today that we experience of Fateh Singh. Now, I bring back the great game on this map. I've tried to, I've highlighted the part that that is the kingdom of the princely state of Mewar and Udaipur. There's a reason I've put this illustration, this image of the illustration on the right. Anyone would like to tell me the significance of this? It's fascinating. What is this illustration about, and why might I have put it in out here?
There looks to be a lot of princely states there.
So this is the Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles. It's the Treaty of Versailles has been drawn up, and that's Maharaja Ganga Singh of Bikaner. He was the only Indian prince at the signing of the treaty. And why I say this is, I had said earlier, I'd spoken earlier of Colonel Todd and the creation of these stories of martial races, etc., all driven by the great game, the imperatives of the great game. The states of Rajasthan and the princely states out of Rajputana and Punjab contributed roughly 3 lakh soldiers. And the consequence, to protect, to create a barrier, a physical barrier, well, one part was, you saw that there were a lot more Indian-controlled India in those parts of the country. The second is the stories that were created. And the third is Ganga Singh here at the Palace of Versailles in the Hall of Mirrors. So these are a few images from the Darbar of 1903. I had shown you an illustration of the first one, and 1911, which is where there was the photograph of Sayajirao walking past, striding past the king. These give you an idea of what the second of them was all about. Fateh Singh refused to attend the darbars of either 1903 or 11, but the reason for that was not that he was protesting against the English. The Maharana of Mewar was seen as being the most powerful of all the Rajput clans, and it was about jockeying it was about positioning himself in the eyes of the other Rajput princes. A very quick word, Fateh Singh was overthrown, and it was by the Bhil agitation that happened. That's the top right. the Tejawat-led agitation. The situation in the kingdom of, in the princely state of Mewar was so pathetic that even as genteel a person as Gokhale, sitting more than 1,000 kilometers away, was protesting about the utter lack of development. It was called genteel medievalism, if not senile medievalism. Having said that, here are a few things that I want you to consider. When the Bhils are protesting, they are talking of the Russian Tsar, but they are not talking of Birsa Munda and the Santal and the uprising in the Chotanagpur plateau in 1899. They are not talking of the Santal agitation and the fight back against the British in 1855. India as a concept is, well, here's the thing. I'm a Bhil. I am from the state of Mewar. I will talk about the Tsar. I will talk about the Bolsheviks. But do I really feel as though I'm part of this one entity where, as a consequence of which I take inspiration from Sidhu and Kanu Murmu of the Santal Revolution? Did not happen. There's a significance to this, and therein comes in the role of Ravi Verma. Incredible impact that he has had. I'm not here to talk about the aesthetics of his paintings. I want you to feel someone who's born in the mid 1800s. He's from a small village called Kilimanur in Kerala. I've marked that on the map, and he goes on to capture the national imagination like no one else. And if you look at the art, if you look at just simply his impact on art, proceeding from left to right, that's the Kalighat painting. On top is a Rajasthan miniature painting from around the same period as he existed. Bottom center is a Pottochitra from Odisha. And here he is on the right. The painting is called Waiting for Papa. Look at how different are his sensibilities, how European possibly, but very importantly, things like chiaroscuro, which you wouldn't, I mean, the tones, the drape of the fabric, every little bit, the use of the carpet to send a message. Why do I talk about it is because I go back to that Bhil agitation. They do not talk about the Santals. They do not talk about Sidhu and Kanu. They do not talk about Birsa Munda, heroes. Here is Ravi Verma drawing Lakshmi on the bottom right. Now, if you look at it, does it look like Lakshmi is from any specific part of India? The image on the top left is, of course, from Hampi. The moment you see it, you would say Rashtrakutas, maybe Yadavas, maybe Hoysalas, maybe Satavahanas, Kakatiyas, possibly. Distinctly South Indian. The one in the center is from the time of Jahangir. Each of the three is Lakshmi. But when you look at Ravi Verma, he imagined the goddesses in a manner where they did not belong to one specific part of the country. And the person who really helped Ravi Verma erupt onto the national stage, Sayaji Rao, he commissioned a set of 14 paintings based on stories from the Puranas. I would have loved it if Manu had been here today to bring to us the magic, the amount of impact it had, the lakhs of people who streamed into these halls to see those paintings. And here are a few of them. Some of them are well known. I do not want us to look at whether these in today's, in the context of sensibilities that we hold today, whether these mean high class art. Feel it of 130 years ago. Look at what Sayaji Rao has set loose. I mean, long before Varghese Kurian has moved again from Kerala to Anand, very close to Baroda. Here is someone who has not only talent but has a vision, and he is recognized by Sayaji Rao. And Sayaji Rao says, "Okay, you draw me, but you also draw things that can be displayed for the Indian public," and it becomes a traveling show. And where does it end up? It ends up on matchboxes. It ends up on soaps. And it ends up on calendars. I have a little quiz for you. some of us are old enough to remember this soap called Vinolia. It's still available, pointlessly expensive. And you see an image here in the center of a vessel. Would you connect Ravi Verma with this vessel? With this ship?
No.
The ship is the Titanic, and
Oh.
the first class cabins of Titanic used to carry only tablets of Vinolia. And well, there's Ravi Verma for you. So it would be remiss to not mention the third person in this trinity. So there's Ravi Verma himself. Please try and see if you can feel the magic of this whole thing from a small, tiny village called Kilimanur onto Baroda and onto the national stage, propelled by the vision and the financial support of Sayaji Rao. But there's Dadabhai Nauroji, who makes the printing presses available so that prints by the lakhs can be made, and Indian houses now have the same Lakshmi in Motihari, Bihar as in Satara, Maharashtra for the first time. So I come to the very end. Here's a little quiz. There are a set of images on the right-hand side. I have labeled them A, B, C, D, etc. It's open house. Connect A with, you have to tell me A is connected to which one and why. And this is the very last bit. It's a little game that I would want us to play before we close.
A and E.
A and
E.
No, you have to connect it with the kingdom and you have to give me the
Oh,
link.
okay. Kingdom.
So the banyan tree and Vadodara.
Wonderful. And the connection being?
The banyan tree itself, right? Vadodara.
And what specifically is the connection? How do you connect the banyan tree with Vadodara?
Because Vadodara means land of banyan trees, doesn't it?
Yeah, Vad. Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful. Great start.
What about E and Baroda? No. E and...
I'd like everyone to take a stab at it. It does not matter. This is not about the right answer. It's a teaser. I'd like to get the... please, everyone, take a stab at it. The coin on the right top is of Augustus Caesar.
Wow. No, I don't think anyone can catch on.
Is F
related to Mysore?
Sorry, would you say that again, please?
He is related to Mysore?
I heard Mysore, but before that, I could not catch.
Mysore.
She said E. E. Picture E. She's connecting to
And what is
Mysore.
the connection? What is the connection?
Elephants.
A and Mysore, okay, but what is the connection?
E, not A. E.
E. Okay.
She said E.
Oh, okay. 1 second. Let me just move this a little bit.
Perfect complexion soap. With Lux.
G with
Okay.
Bihar.
And I'm sorry, E is not Mysore. Let me, I have brought in some more cues out here. There are 2 more images I've added. So if you could please, this is a game. We don't have to get the right answer. This is not a test.
Is
and Baroda
G
with the,
is G Dhoni with
Okay.
Bihar?
Yes, Dhoni.
Dhoni, you would connect with which one, please?
Bihar,
No, it's any of these 5 princely states.
princely states. So let's see.
Is F connected to Mysore?
F is connected with Mysore? Is that Indian Institute of Science?
Yes, I think so.
All right,
Okay,
S
sure.
is connected to
Dhoni
Mysore
with
and the Indian
Dardhana?
Institute of Science. No, that's I'm afraid that's not. But let that no not put you off. Take another stab at it.
Is that Vishweshwara's photo?
That is Visvesvarya. F is actually
Deccan
slowly
College?
Pune.
Deccan
Is-
College.
Is it Sassoon Hospital?
Technical College.
It is COEP Pune, College of
Oh,
Engineering.
college.
That's your college, Farooq.
I swear.
Hmm.
I thought as much. बोला पूना का कोई राजा नहीं है तो मैं नहीं बोला फिर.
Dhoni
So in
with
the
Connect
earlier events,
Dhoni
I had
with
not put
the
Visvesvaraya.
Rajputana.
And
no, Dhoni with Darbhanga.
sorry, Dhoni with?
Darbhanga.
Rajputana.
No, not
And what is the
Rajputana.
connection?
Darbhanga. Raja
The
of
uprising,
Darbhanga.
the Bhil uprising.
Okay. Dhoni
Or
had he been
Chhattisgarh
around,
and
he would have
Birsa
made
Munda.
sure
No.
the
Dhoni is with Darbhanga. Darbhanga, so it is the year uprising. Southern uprising.
It's about the 5 princely states. So
it has to do something with the Bhil, Birsa Munda, those uprisings, right? I mean, the Bhil uprising.
I wish we had the 5 princely states on the screen quickly.
Yeah, we can't see it.
They are there. They are there.
Perfect complexion soap would be Mysore sandalwood soap.
wonderful.
That's it. Yeah.
But why Dhoni there?
Dhoni was the brand ambassador for Mysore sandal soap.
Was he?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Because his name was Dhoni. Dhoni से होता है कुछ ऐसा?
So Rangacharilu, Krishna Raja Odayar and Visvesvaraya are the reasons why Dhoni got a fat sum of money to be the brand ambassador for Mysore sandal soap. All right. Let's try A, C, D, and E in closing.
E, C, D, and E.
Would A be from the Mewar thing? The A Mewar because of those bulls?
Okay, because he was a bull who carried his China shop around with him, is it?
That's quite funny way to put it, but I'm suggesting that these bulls must be from the hills around that area.
Okay.
Is that the bison? Is A
bison? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bison. So that was
Travancore mein to nahi.
somewhere, I think, central India.
Oh, okay.
You have to connect it to any one of the 5 central states and give us the reason why you say so.
So I think it's probably somewhere in central India.
That's Gaur, which is connected to Mysore.
It's Mysore. It's Mysuru. Mahesh. So it's the buffalo.
Okay.
And the Mahisha. So you have Chamundi as the Chamundi Hills.
Yeah,
and Chamundeshwari at the bottom, at the top of the hill.
That big bull statue is there.
Yeah. So A is of course Mysuru and it being Mahisha or the buffalo. Let's go for C, D, and E.
E must be Travancore. Yeah.
Sorry, which one?
The Travancore kingdom that you.
Which one?
E.
All right, and the connection being?
First of all, maybe the elephants.
Okay.
And the second thing is that they had that badge very similar to the East India Company. Very similar.
So yes, E is Travancore, and Travancore had the highest percentage amongst all the 5 states. The highest percentage of earnings from trade was always logged by Travancore. Kerala always has been Kerala states, whether it's the Zamorans or whether it's been the state of Travancore. All right, D and C.
B to bole na Baroda.
D for Delhi and C for Charlie Delta.
C. You're creating riddles, no? That's the thing.
So I said, C, the coin is from, that is Augustus Caesar's head. No reflection of what Cleopatra did to cleave his head, but
C and D.
So does it have anything to do with the port of Musiris?
All right.
Which so would that be Tondayaman's?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the hoard that was uncovered and shows the so Pliny complaining in the Senate about bullion flowing continuously out of the Roman Empire into India, and the hoards of amphoras, empty amphoras, of course, and Roman coins, golden coins that have been discovered. Yes, it was Pudukkottai. Okay. And D, please.
D.
These look like grasslands.
D.
Yeah,
D for Delhi.
There's a grasslands and those are.
Could be anywhere.
No, that's
Anyone,
arid land. Rajasthan.
Oh, they're cows. So again, Gujarat is cows and
Something to
milk.
do with dairy farming.
Anand.
Anand, Amul, Gujarat, Baroda.
All right.
That's exactly what I thought. All those.
But where's the connection? Where's the connection?
The cows, the milk.
Baroda.
All right. So here's the thing. Gaikwad, the guy comes from, it's two parts.
Oh, I would never have thought along those lines at all.
So Gaikwad was not a family name, it was a regnal name. He's originally, they were, it was Gopal Rao, Malhar Rao, etc. They were Marathas who were ruling Gujarat. And they, of course, they had to create a story about their ancestry. But Gaikwad was taken as a name. Just quick part, first part of the name Gaikwad, the regnal name, comes from the Gai bit. What does the second part come from? Those who speak Marathi should be able to.
Vada. Please.
I'll leave that to you. So we
Gaikawada.
Is it shepherd? Is it a shepherd?
No. It's about a little door. The significance of a cow and a little door, and therefore the.
Oh, but Vada would be.
Now, I would love to take questions if time permits. There are enough reasons to read the book itself. But to me, what joy I got out of the book was one part. The book served as a portal to a world of more things I got to know, things that were elevating, fascinating. And I'm not even done with what I can explore, what I've been exploring over the last 5-6 months. This book came out in September last year, the 3rd week. And I finished reading it around the middle of October. I have been looking at the notes that Manu has put together, people like Priya Atwal and her comments on how the states of Punjab succumbed to the British rather than getting chewed up by Ranjit Singh. The kind of communal local politics in Travancore and therefore Diwan of Travancore telling Mountbatten, you want to create India, go ahead. You as the English will be back in less than 15 years. The manner in which the nationalist agitations grew in the parts of the country marked yellow, in other words, direct rule of the English, versus the pink areas where it is Indian rule India. There are fascinating stories. But one thing I want to say is this 40-year rule that I talk about, whether it is Ibrahim Adil Shah in Bijapur, whether it's the Odayars in Mysore, or whether it's Deng Xiaoping till today in China, 40 years. He tells us if we can have 40 years of enlightened rule, where you reach at the end of the 4th decade, well, you can't even recognize where you had started from. This is just one of the lessons I've drawn. Second is, if you look at consequences even today, well, senile medievalism was what was used to describe Udaipur and Mewar. And if you look at infant mortality rates, maternal mortality rates, incidence of the penetration of vaccination, you would see the consequences even today of what was happening 140, 150 years ago. Those who do not learn from history are condemned to repeat it.
Condemned to do it.
I do not want to take the negative line. What I'm saying here, whether it's the 40-year rule that I have formulated for myself or a host of other things, there are fascinating things that one can start exploring because of Manu's false allies. And I would urge you to consider reading this book if you have not done that already. I've had hours of joy time.
Did you study under Barun De, Professor Barun De?
No.
Okay, you missed something. You would
No.
have enjoyed.
He would admit students only of a certain caliber and above.
He would
I
have
never
enjoyed
met.
being with you. Okay, I'll tell you why. Right now, that two questions I've asked, you are raised, was one of martial races. The British were defeated or made to have suffer a lot. Were the short little UP ka bhaiya and persons from Bihar and Bengal, etc., who really made their life miserable. And they were never considered a martial race. And even today, they were not considered a martial race. But they got who? The Sikhs. Sikhs gave away, they surrendered as fast as they could. The Rajputs played games. Mine, yours, we'll pay a game and do it. Gurkhas were completely different. They were paid to do what they were done. But they forgot all these UP ka bhaiyas who, they didn't forget, they kept them aside. And they were never ever taken as a regiment in the Indian army, even today. Bihar regiment started about 15 years back, and that's all. There, okay, that is one. Now, you talked about Pune. Anindya, we should be proud of Pune. Pune has been the leader of thought of our independence movement. It is the one who's always talked about it. And Bal Gangadhar Tilak did say that about, we must have a freedom as much as we want to. And right now, even now, we are not giving credit to Gokhale and Tilak as much as we are giving to others who maybe took it forward, but we do not give credit to them. This is the second question. And the third, London, England. When, what's his name, James, came to visit Jahangir, Jahangir was stunned. He looked at the Englishman and what was happening in England as, unko kuch samajh aati hai kya nahi? They're living in dirt. And you see the movie that over Shakespeare, etc., etc. They used to throw their shit, etc., out of the windows down onto the road. Must have been a very stinky place. Believe you me, my dad used to say that the British are dirty. He went to do his FRC.
Is there a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to show you something. I just wanted to show you, this is the book on the memoirs of the Aga Khan.
Okay.
And this is printed in 1955.
All right. He talks glowingly, Aga Khan III talks glowingly of Sayaji Rao, the personal conversations, and it shows aspects and facets of Sayaji Rao's character which I think a historian would delight in, and also the way in which you and I, Farooq, are benefiting out of Sayaji Rao today, which Aga Khan records out there.
Yeah.
Incredible. And those conversations happened in Pune.
Yeah, and Sultan Muhammad Shah, whom we call as our Imam, was our previous Imam. He has been laughed at a lot because he was, the first person who started the Muslim League. He represented the Muslim community in the London conference, and people said, "What is this following? Why is he being taken there?" But unfortunately, he is one of the victims of history. Sultan Muhammad Shah, members of Aga Khan.
So I want to say something here, Farooq. You see, history typically has been weaponized across centuries.
Yes.
All right. What has happened in the last 10 years in India is an incredible number of genuine researchers without any ideological slant have started writing. Whether it's Ira Mukhoti, whether it's William Dalrymple from earlier on, whether it's Ramchandra Guha. And when I say genuine writing, it means going to base facts. For example, here's a very small one, and it's going to throw you completely, blow you. When you talk of the Indian independence movement, all the accounts, all the research has been done by looking at newspapers such as the Statesman or the Times of India. How about going to Midnapur or Darbhanga or Allahabad and looking up newspapers from 1890s to 1930s? And there are people who are doing it today. All right. But why do I say this is because one of the things that really gets my goat is Indian history means Safdarjung tomb. I mean, really, Krishnadeva Raya should narrate 3,000 tombs in that case. If you walk around Hampi, you can't even finish admiring it in less than 7 days. All right. Second things, fake news. Battle of Talikota is positioned today in a certain way. Why do I say that? Is Martanda Varma apparently, we should of course celebrate him. And we are told that he threw the Dutch out, but that was an accident. The ship getting blown up was an accident. And it was taken as an omen. But you can't put a spin on things. And in the last 10 years, the number of writers who have been doing genuine research, who've been narrating stories, and to go back to this boy I talked about just outside my gate from the slum, they have been telling stories which we remember. We as human beings don't understand data. We remember stories.
This, if I may ask you a question, if you were to put in essence these false allies and the way he has taken these 5 kingdoms where this big painter went and painted and the impression that he took, suppose you were to total it up into, first is the impression that you got and you gave this talk, but what is Manu Pillai basically selecting this 5 for, and what is he summarizing it for the reader?
So for those who have been reading Manu Pillai's,
I have read this book. This book I have read. I have read this that Deccan ka bhi padha hai aur wo Ivory Throne bhi padha hai uska sab. So I have read all of them. But in this book I sort of lost the connect between this. So please help me in that.
Okay, so the only person who can help you is Manu, and not Manu of Manu Smriti, but Manu Pillai fame. 2 things. Those who have read Manu Pillai, this is the 4th book they are reading. The rating they have given this book is between 2 and 3. Those who are reading False Allies is the first book of Manu Pillai, have given it a rating between 4 and 5. This has got the lowest rating out of the 4 books he's written. And it's for the first time that he's fallen below 3.5 rating. The False Allies bit raises your expectations. It's a little contrived. The only true false ally out of the 5 is Gopal Rao from near Nasik. And the Mysore Odayars were going to be the first venture good boys. 2 of the kingdoms never wanted to become part of India. And of course, how can you call Pudukottai a kingdom is beyond me. But nevertheless, let's be in a charitable mood. Fateh Singh of Mewar, he was, I don't know what he was smoking up, but there were fewer kilometers of roads in his entire kingdom than in the city of Mysore. And that was why was he saying that? My rich Rajput heritage, for 550 years, we've not had roads. Where is the need for it? But however, Raja Ravi Varma's contribution to bringing us together as a country, I think could have been brought out far more. And this is not an opinion. I have a lot of friends who love history. I have a number of friends who love art. We are, Raja Ravi Varma has been killed by the presses that he built, the Kishi colors, the terrible colors. They are so off-putting that you either are homicidal or suicidal. So you want to take those matchboxes which have images of his paintings and you want to light a fire that will spread all across your neighborhood. But Raja Ravi Varma's contribution to us thinking of ourselves as a union seamlessly because of our cultural heritage is immense.
Okay. That's a good take. That's a good take. Any other questions? Eraj, are you there?
Eraj,
Marucha?
He's not there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you are there. Kapila Rega.
What's your take?
I love this as a story. And I've always, I've seen, you see today replicas of Raja Varma's paintings all over the place in calendars and whatever. But it was a time, and that was a very specific art form. I personally don't find it garish or bad. I feel it's one particular form of art. And that was a period where that came through. And I think it came through more because it was so non-Western. It was its own culture, as it were. So I've always looked at it very differently, I guess. But then these people did incredible things. Some of these states really did incredible things all over the country. Some were terrible and some were brilliant people and wonderful administrators.
So,
for
part
me,
of the dramatis personae from Dadabhai Nauroji to Justice Rana Day to Raja Ravi Verma to maybe Chimnabai could have, as the second wife of Sayaji Rao, to my mind should have found place. But the cast of characters, it's like having Sholay with Dharmendra and Amitabh Bachchan, and also throwing in Gregory Peck. There's also Anthony Quinn. There's also and also Shakespeare as a walk-on part. I mean, how can you have an age with so many stellar characters?
Yeah,
and if I could have a 3-hour session on one simple thing about this age, which is the huge transition post 1905 after the fall of the Tsar, where before that, the nationalists and the princes were on the same page. Thereafter, people power took over, and the cusp was the fall of the Tsar, but it was aggravated and accelerated by 1917 to 1919, the fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. How we as Indians today are benefiting out of it. How today Article 15, where the primary contributor was a certain Dr. Ambavadikar, and I choose to call him as Ambavadikar, his original name, because of a 50 rupee scholarship 130 years ago by one gentleman. We benefit from these people today, but it's a fascinating story of how the nationalists and the princes start off on the same page, and then they go completely different. By the time it's 1930 to 1932 and the roundtable conferences, the three of them, they have gone completely there's a fork in the road, and they've gone on completely different tracks.
Why?
Why I say this is Ravi Verma's ability or contribution to us staying on the same track for a while. It's fascinating. I can go on and on. I would be raving, almost a man crush on Ravi Verma, but not because of just his paintings. It's because of his bringing us together.
But
making a person in Assam feel as much part of an Indian union as someone from Tirunelveli.
I asked you a question. Why do you think that the princes and the rest fell apart? Why did they?
Why did the who fall apart?
The princes, the three princes who were there, fell apart from the rest of the country.
Which princes?
The ones who didn't want to join the nation.
There were not many who didn't want to join the country. Out of these 5, whether it was Junagadh or whether it was Hyderabad, they didn't want to join the country.
No, I'm not talking about them. For the conference, at the conference, you said that the princes went away from the independence movement.
Okay, so I think maybe the question is, why did the princes go a certain way and the nationalists go another way?
Yeah.
So 2 things. One is people power has never existed in human history till about 110 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a completely new development.
Mm-hmm.
Universal franchise. I mean, why should women be given the right to vote? Men should think for women. Seriously? Anyway, Mohini, don't grin. It's, I could talk about that for again hours together. But why am I saying this is, when I talk of that, the dramatis personae, it is a Chimnabai as the wife of Sayaji Rao. The husband and wife are realizing कि इससे नहीं होने वाला है, boss. It is people's power. And a Fateh Singh is Canute standing on the beach, ordering the waves to roll back. They have never seen these waves. When a Birsa Munda is protesting, the British can't understand why he's protesting or can't tolerate, but the district I come from, it takes its name after, I would love to ask that as a quiz question, but it takes its name after Mahavira, who was known as Vardhaman Swami. The king of Vardhaman can't understand why the Santals are protesting. How they are my subjects, they have to blindly follow what I say. So not being able to recognize how the how the sands had changed, how the sands had shifted worldwide, reading the tea leaves, understanding how this is not a trivial incremental change from earlier, it's a dramatic inflection point. And World War I, if that shooting had, if on 17th April 1911, that guy had not shot the Archduke in Sarajevo, maybe you and I would have been living in a state like Soviet Russia or China, because if you look at all the countries that went to people's power ostensibly during that period, very few have gone the India way. It's a beautiful question to ask. Why is it that India went the way it is, where peaceful transfer of power arising out of however distorted be the voting process, but peaceful transfer of power takes place. It's a strong society and a weaker central state, whereas a China and a Russia and a host of others are a strong central state and a weak polity.
Are we changing?
And the contributions of whether it is Sayaji Rao, Chimnabai, Raja Ravi Verma, a host of other people, starting with who Mohan Bhai called the father of the nation. Mohan Bhai is
Gandhi.
Gandhi. Yeah, Apno Mohan Bhai. Dadabhai Nauroji, starting from there, S.N. Banerjee, who were the people's advocate. All right.
Okay.
So it's a fascinating period in Indian history. And I would love to, if it is of interest at any time in the future, a year from now or whenever, to dwell on one simple question. Why is it that despite such a diverse polity, we are still experiencing peaceful transfers of power in every part of the country? Whereas you can't even think of this in Soviet Russia or any of the Central Asian republics or China, countries that ostensibly achieved independence around the same time that India did.
But even earlier, the United States got it because of a war. That's all. That's nothing. India was the first to try to get this out.
You know, that's not my point at all.
Satish, shall we? It's now 8 o'clock, so I think there are no questions, and so
we can keep on discussing.
Yeah.
Anindya, thank you very much. There's been a lot of thought. You opened a lot of minds around. Thank you very much. I'm glad you came and talked about the subject. Very interesting. Let's keep the discussion going later on sometime or the other. And Mohini, take over.
Yes, Anindya, I'd like to thank you also. Really enjoyed this. And I love the way you read the book into, I think, areas that one might not think of even while reading the book. Raja Ravi Verma, you know, I've always had these very mixed feelings about him. So you clarified some of them. I mean, there's that Renaissance kind of a feeling about him, the source of light and the layers of the sari and all that. And then there's the proximity to calendar art also. So, well, thank you. You have clarified some of those thoughts in my mind. So thank you. Very rewarding session. Very, very rewarding indeed. And thank you everybody else who came. And it's a pity that everyone has switched off their videos. I wish they hadn't, but they have. And I'm not going to ask them to put them on now at this late stage, but I'm sure they're all with me, Anindya, in thanking you and in saying that, you know, we enjoyed it very much. I can now see Indu and Anil. Thank you for switching on. I'm sure they join me too in saying that they appreciated the session. Thank
Absolutely. I think this was one of the best presentations ever.
Yes.
And I think your knowledge of that area is better than Manu Pillai's.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal. No, really phenomenal. And the way you have it at your fingertips.
I would sometimes like to have a conversation with you. I don't know how.
Mo, talk about what we are doing next.
Okay. So
it was an excellent talk. I enjoyed it immensely. My wife and me. I'm Subbarao from Delhi.
Who's this?
Subbarao
from Delhi.
Hi, Subbarao. Good
That
to
is
see you.
Mr. Subbarao and Mrs. Dr. Subbarao, two doctors in the, they picked it up.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Subbarao, for joining in.
Maybe just a short one. This is how history should be taught.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
This is what history is about. It is these stories and the fascinating stories and the balance that comes out of that, so that we really understand who are we as Indians. Thank you very much. It was great.
In fact, In our time, Varun Dey was the one who enlivened us, pushed us to think about what India was, etc. Mohini, go ahead now. I know it's getting late.
So let me just say that next Sunday, we are having a session which Farooq and Nasima have put together on the iconic Hindi film Pakiza. Okay, so that's what we are having Sunday, and that's the 3rd of April. And 4th of April, we're having a Shakespeare celebration in which several of our members, and 7, 8, or 9 of our members are presenting something on Shakespeare. So that should be lovely, right? So we look forward to having you all with next Sunday and the Sunday after. Thank you very much for joining us.
And thank you, Anindya. All the very best to you.
One minute.
Last word from Farooq.
Yeah. So, Anindya, fantastic presentation. Your PPT presentation was world class. One thing Raja Ravi Verma did was that he became the Picasso of India, the Indian Picasso, the guy who, because we had a session, on the James Wales thing, where this guy came from England and did the painting for all the Maharajas in the end of the 18th century, and Uday Kulkarni did this presentation in the book club. And I think the way Manu Pillai has brought Raja Ravi Verma through this book, he has brought something great which we had forgotten, that we had.
In fact, after reading, I tried to get Uday to come also along there, but Uday was busy today. So otherwise, Uday would be another person who would have been very good. And
another thing that I would like to add is, Anindya, is that there are many people in our group. Gyanadab is a big community. One is the book club, the Guldasta Urdu Hindi. Then we have a Gyanpedia group where we do programs on knowledge, science, astronomy. And Dr. Eraj Barucha himself is he is a doyen of natural resources and conservation of tigers, and he has written huge books. History is one subject we want to take up in a more detailed way, have some good discussions, some honest discussions on, and remove the myths and the things out of it. But amazing, Anindya, this was one of the
no, that's a good idea, Farooq. That's a good idea. Let's try to
Farooq, today I did put in a lot of effort. This was my tribute to Dadabhai Nauroji, to Sayaji Rao, to Chimnabai, to a host of people, because of whom you and I are talking today in an India which is distinctly different from an authoritarian state, where people from, whether it's Ambedkar being given, Amba Wadekar being given a 50 rupee scholarship and therefore you and I benefiting, or whether it's an RC that's standing up. This was my little thank you to such people.
So I just wanted to end today's program by telling that next Saturday we have a very good program, 2-hour program on Khaja Ahmad Abbas. Khaja Ahmad Abbas wrote 500 plus short stories, wrote 70 plus books. He wrote all the stories for Raj Kapoor, for Avara, Shri 420 and everything. But most important, during the 1947 and 50s, he wrote a lot of things regarding the social infrastructure of India. So that is a book that is a person we are covering next Saturday. I think Pakiza already Mohini has talked about. So more good things to happen in the next few. And Anindya, we would like you to be a regular presence in our book clubs and other Gyanadab events. So thank you very much. So
Anindya, you're we put you on our mailing list. Don't you worry. You're
okay.
there.
So with kind permission of everybody, shall I end the session?
Yes, please. Thank you, everyone.
This whole session will be on Facebook. I'll be putting the recording immediately after this. We'll be on YouTube on Monday.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.